Hey everybody, behind me you'll see that we have two of the higher end 10-inch miter saws. From this side we have the Bosch, it is the CM10GD, and I've owned this one for a couple of years, and in this video I'm going to show you a couple of things that I like about it, a couple of things that I don't like about it, which is the reason why on your left we have the Makita. This is the LS1019L, and this just got delivered today. I've played around with it a little bit, and a couple of the reasons why I bought it are absolutely amazing. There are a couple of shortcomings on it though that I want to highlight. So this video is meant to be essentially an initial impressions of the Makita as well as a bit of a comparison between the two saws. It's by no means an in-depth review. I'm not going to be going through all of the technical specifications of each saw. So let's get to it and I'll show you some of the things I like about both these saws. Okay, so a couple of things about these saws. The Bosch comes in at a whopping, I think it's 64 pounds. Let's take a look at my cheat sheet here. Yeah, 64 pounds, whereas the Makita comes in at just under 58 pounds. The Bosch does use that axial glide. I'll show you that in just a moment. Actually, let's show that right now. So let's unlock the glide system and unlock the front of the saw. And you'll see how it has that articulating arm and just how smooth that is. Super smooth, very quiet. Whereas on the Makita, the system on it is a little different. Let's unlock that and unlock this. So it's got this forward-facing rail system using linear ball bearings, or it's a linear system using ball bearings. And you'll see that it makes a little bit of sounds, that is. Still feels really nice, and what I'm hoping for with this, I did test it on a piece of 10-inch plywood earlier today, is that I'm hoping that when it's at its full extension, let's take a break, take it out. When it's at its full extension, that it's as accurate at this part of the blade as it is when you slide it back. And that was one of the shortcomings that I had with my Bosch Glide, was that as I got out towards that 12-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch mark, that it started to deflect a little bit. So I know that there probably are ways to adjust it just slightly, and it wasn't off by too much, but I think for me getting into woodworking and not just construction, I did start to get a little frustrated with that. If I were cutting shelves or anything like that, I just found that I would go right to the track saw because I couldn't trust this miter saw to be accurate. Whereas I'm hoping that the Makita can be accurate when it's out all the way. What is cool about both these saws that you'll notice is that they move forward. It doesn't have the rails that you typically see on some of the other ones, whether it's from DeWalt or Makita and Bosch also make them, but they move forward to allow you to get closer to the back of the wall. So very nice to have that, especially in a small shop like mine. These are by no means small footprints. I would say that, and I took some measurements earlier, that the Bosch it's about 30.5 inches wide at minimum with these extenders pushed in, and when it's stored, so when it's in its stored position, let's just lock it down, which is basically when it's at 60 degrees this way, it is 21 inches deep from this part to the back of the saw. So for me, having it on a little stand, that actually really helps me save a lot of space in my one room or my one car garage shop. Now the Makita, let's just lock it in place too. And let's move it to 60 degrees. The nice thing with the Makita is that it goes 60 degrees both ways, whereas the Bosch is limited to 60 degrees one way and I believe 50-ish degrees the other way, 45 degrees. So it is nice to be able to go both ways with that. I don't do too many cuts over 45 degrees. I'm usually just doing trim work, but it will be nice to have that flexibility. So compared to the 30.5 inches wide that the Bosch is, the Makita comes in, and that's the edge here, comes in at 28.5 inches. So about 2 inches shorter, which is a bit nice. It will give me a little bit more room on the stand, and it does have these extension wings that do pull out as well. Now the depth, that's where the big difference is. So in stored position, I mentioned that the Bosch is 21 inches deep from the absolute back of the saw to the front, and the Makita is 18.5 inches. So that's 2.5 inches less, which is going to be nice when it comes to being on that stand. But at 90 degrees, the Bosch, from the absolute back of the articulating arm mechanism, is 33.5 inches to the front. Now keep in mind that these will usually be stowed in my garage on the bench unless I'm using them, because I just wouldn't have room to walk between my workbench and where these are stowed. So 32.5 inches deep, whereas the Makita comes in at 31.5, so it saves an inch. But there's a caveat to that. Now, one thing that you'll notice is both of these have really good dust collection mounting mechanisms for those of us that are using the Festool and some other dust extractors. So I can just put it right into the Bosch and it's fine. It comes off the side, so it's not going to interfere with anything. Whereas on the Makita, it has a really cool dust collection system that I'll get to in just a moment, but it mounts kind of on the top, which looks great. And when I was first using this, I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's gonna give me that 1 inch of extra space. But as soon as I unlock the saw, it goes back and it's an 1.5 inches behind that. So that's where it goes to from 31.5 inches to 33 inches deep from the absolute back, which is gonna be the Festool hose here, to the front. Now, not a huge deal, but if I'm gonna be putting bolts through the table that this is gonna be mounted on, that means that I have to account for that. And that is something that I'm not absolutely thrilled about. I don't know, like I think it looks neat here, but if they had it tilted forward, that'd be awesome. So I am gonna be looking at a right angle adapter for my hose so that I can do that, because the dust collection is one of the reasons why I bought this saw. Speaking about dust collection, let's just take a quick look at the Bosch. So it has this little hood down here, nothing too fancy. I actually had to put some duct tape on it because it did come apart. And then it also has the dust port up there. And it comes with just kind of like this not very structured bag, which I never used. Now the Makita, haven't tried a Milwaukee one yet, has a very interesting mechanism. There, let's unlock that. So what it has is it has dual dust ports. So it still has the one hood right here where dust that's stuck on the blade is gonna get sucked in. But then it also has this massive port at the back. Let me just turn the articulating or the slide on. So turning on the slide, you can see how this could work. So you're cutting back here, sawdust is mostly going into that initial hood, and then it's gonna start to get kicked into this bulk hood right here. And this is fantastic. Like that is almost 5 inches wide. So it really is quite cool how they've done that. And you don't have to hook up two hoses to it. So they've used this hose right here to connect to both of them. And when I was trying this, I was pretty impressed with the dust collection on this. And I have heard from other reviewers, and I have, one of the main reasons why I bought this saw was the dust collection. So I've taken dust collection very seriously this year, and I would say that the Bosch Glide is awful when it comes to dust collection or dust extraction. The Makita, proof by two examples earlier today, seems to be a lot better. So it's by no means perfect. A miter saw is a very messy tool, but much better than the Bosch. So let's compare something where I think the Bosch definitely wins, and that's with the fence system. So both of them have fences that are easily removable. They're just these little dials on the back, or these little things. And the Bosch one allows you to slide it along. So if you want to be doing your bevel cut, you can simply lock that down. You can still get support pretty high up out to the side. You can do the exact same thing on both sides, and you can still bevel the saw and make that, that angled cut. Now on the Makita, it's a little different. It is nice having this scale mounted on there, although I would never trust those marks. And the downside with this, so it has a similar mechanism on the back where you can undo this, but it doesn't slide. If you're doing a bevel cut, you have to take it off. And that was something that disappointed me a little bit. I was really hopeful that it would be a very similar structure where it could slide across. So I'm not exactly sure why they did that, unless there's like a patent or something from Bosch. And they actually advertise in the manual that you can extend that and then have a convenient place to store that, but it does nothing. Like it's not an extended support or anything like that. It's just, they claim that this is like the storage space for it, which is a little funny that they even had that in the manual. So now let's get to something where the Makita is definitely the clear winner, and that is the detent system. So they're both very similar with the positive stops and the angles that they have them, but what's much better with the Makita, and I'll show you why in just a moment, is that the system uses this metal pin. Let's see. Let's get to the other side where it might be a little more clear. It uses this metal pin that then goes into this piece of precision ground aluminum. And I have seen a person on YouTube talk about how this aluminum can wear down over time, especially if you're in the construction business and you're moving around a lot. I don't think that's gonna be a problem for me. I don't think it'd be a problem for most people, but it's nice to have the metal pin into the metal holes. Now on the Bosch, it's a totally different story. And this, actually, when I did an initial impressions of this saw, somebody flagged this to me. It is plastic on plastic for the detent system. So it is this plastic mechanism, which you can even see it's getting worn down a little bit, and I don't even put this through heavy use. And it goes into these plastic holes. So I would say that the Makita is a clear winner right there, despite some of the concerns of this being made out of aluminum. So another thing that we can compare between these two saws, and keep in mind that these are both pretty premium saws. So I think that they actually retail for around the same price. So in Canada, they're both around $700 as far as MSRP. I bought the Bosch on a pretty significant sale, I think for like $550, $600. And I just bought the Makita from Amazon in Canada for under $500. So with tax, it is going to be well under $600 for this. I'll probably actually be able to get about $550 for the Bosch. So yeah, worked out really well. That's why I made this move. I've had this on my wish list for a while at about $700, hoping for it to go on for $600. Went on for less than $100 than that. So I scooped it up. Now we've got these clamping mechanisms on both of them, and the Bosch one, it sucks. It can swing around if you have the fence all the way in, which is fine. And then you just have to screw this down. Now Festool does a really good job with this. I'm not expecting that from either of these companies because it would be quite expensive, but we're still screwing it down. And this was set for 1.5 inch pieces, and now it's for 3/4 inch plywood. And we're there. So that took a little while. Now on the Makita, it's a different system. So again, we've got it set, actually probably closer to 2 inches. And so it does have this little screwy guy, but it also has this quick, there, just drop it, clamp it down, a little bit of screwing there, and we're good. So much faster with this. So like, as far as kind of the comparison of these two, it's not even close. It's shocking how poor the Bosch one is. That's what you get on a 10-inch Metabo, which I did have before. So actually the story of my miter saw, so this will be my fourth miter saw. So when I first moved to this house, I bought one of the larger 12-inch DeWalt's and used it for a lot of home improvement projects. It was great, but it took up a ton of space in my little one-car garage shop that I have to share with a snowblower in the winter and with garbage cans and recycling and kids' toys and bikes and all that kind of stuff. Then I pulled a Mark Spagnuolo and I moved to a little 10-inch Metabo, and it wasn't good. Dust collection was brutal. I would just put it on the driveway and let the dust fly, and it was loud, and there was no slider, so I ran into limitations with the size of the material. So I bought the Bosch. Actually, no, you know what? I won this in a contest. That's where I got it. I totally forgot that I actually won this miter saw. So it's actually done pretty well over a couple of years. It's big. Dust collection kind of stinks, and the deflection is the reason why I moved to the Makita. So that's the background on my history with miter saws. And who knows, in a couple of years, maybe I'll go to the Festool Capex. Okay, so we got both these plugged in. Let's just open them up, and I want to show you a little bit of the difference in how they sound when they start. So the Bosch, they both have very different handles, and actually the height of the Bosch is quite a bit higher. Let's take a measurement on that. So the absolute top when it's seated is just under 20 inches, versus the Makita, when it's down, about 18.5 inches. So definitely does sit a bit higher. It's a much bulkier saw, very cumbersome to carry around. And I do move my saws a little bit, not too often, but a few times a year. And I did find it a little annoying with the Bosch Glide. But let's turn it on and just listen to the sound when it starts. So it goes from 0 to 4,800 RPMs very quickly, and they promote that no load speed quite heavily at 4,800 RPMs, although I would say that that's not really a meaningful metric in the world of table or miter saws, although I'm no expert. And the handle, and I have pretty, like I'd say I have long fingers and like a fairly large hand, and this handle is big. Now it's nice that you can use your left or your right. It does have kind of a decent trigger there, but it is definitely a beast when it comes to that handle. And the Makita, let's get a little closer to it. All right, now let's get to the Makita, and it is a bit different. Let's just unlock it. There we go. And it's a bit smaller of a handle, nice rubberized grip. And it's got this little push button rather than a thumb doohickey on the Bosch. And listen to this. It's a soft start, and that is quite nice to have that soft start. It's a little less intense. I did just get the SawStop table saw, and it is wild with the sound that it makes when it starts, so it's nice to have soft start on this. Now let's hook these up to the dust extractor. Let's just do a little sample cut. We're not going to be doing any sort of scientific research on dust collection or which one's absolutely better and by how much, but let's grab a little piece of plywood. And the dust extractor. And oh, neat little thing with this guy, laser. So I've never had a miter saw with a laser, and out of the box, it does seem to be quite accurate. I haven't absolutely measured to see how accurate it is, and I think you can dial it in a little bit, but it'll be nice just to kind of give a general idea just before you start to get the piece absolutely perfect with the tooth. And that's really what I'm going to be using the laser for, is not necessarily being like, oh, that's where my cut's going to be, boom. If it's off by a fraction of a millimeter, this is just going to be kind of that guidance for that initial placement. So let's turn on the dust extractor. And we're not going to be comparing cut quality. This is a brand new blade in the Makita. It is a used blade, well-used blade in the Bosch. Okay, second try. Forgot to turn on the dust extractor. Yeah, you know what? Let's try to get some close-ups of that dust extraction. Okay, so we've removed both of the upper fences on these, or slid them across on the Bosch because that's very convenient. And I tried to get as close as I could with the camera to show you the dust collection here. So let's turn on the extractor. All right, now for the Bosch. So I just realized I didn't show how these bevel. That is one of the huge selling points on the Makita versus the Bosch. So let's lock this down. And let's say we want to bevel this left. Crank this up. Then we can move it, and not too bad. And there is a mechanism to do some positive stops to an extent. And then if we, oh, it's so heavy. It's a very heavy saw to move. Then if we need to move right, there's a little lever over here that then allows us to go this way. So you can do it. It is double bevel. You can go both ways, but it is a little cumbersome to do. Conversely, with Makita, let's just lock this down. The locking mechanisms on both, to both enable the sliding and just locking the blade down, I would say are about equal. They're different types and different ways to do it, but definitely about equal. So the Makita, a little more similar to the Festool, although it doesn't do it for you, but you do that. You just turn it, you can then tilt. And if you want to go right, there's just a little button. Just go a little bit left, push the button in, then you can go right. So much easier, much lighter to move the top of the saw. And yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Then you just lock it down and you're stuck in place. So I absolutely love this. I think this is a hidden gem on this miter saw. And I would actually avoid doing a lot of bevel cuts on the Bosch because of that mechanism. All right, everybody, so I think that about does it for this video. This was not meant to be a detailed comparison or review or a test of accuracy or that sort of thing. The reality is both of these are two of the highest end 10-inch miter saws you can buy without moving to like a Festool, and I'm sure that there's some others out there that I'm not quite aware of. But the mechanism on the Bosch, it's so smooth. That axial glide is really nice. The only thing for me is that if I'm doing a 10 or 12-inch shelf, I do get enough deflection where I don't use this saw to make those cuts. Will the Makita do it? I hope so. I hope to place or get a review out on this after a few months of use, although I did say I would do that with the Bosch and I never did. The other thing with the Bosch, the beveling, really quite annoying with how heavy it is. It's a bit more of a cumbersome mechanism, a little less smooth. Nice fence system. I don't like the plastic detents. I think that that's something that is a shame that Bosch put on one of their premium saws. And the dust collection is awful. I think that that's one of the things with the Bosch that it was very disappointing. I think with a miter saw, you don't expect great dust collection, but I expected better on a premium saw. And on the Makita, so dust collection was one of the main reasons why I did this move. It was a very lateral move for me. I think that these two are very interchangeable. It's probably whatever brand your preference is. Now, I do like the footprint of this, although there is that dust collection issue on the back, but I do think that I will get a right angle adapter so I can fix that. So dust collection's great. The laser's just a nice to have, a little bit of a better handle. Beveling is much smoother. The fence system, not quite as nice. And I do like that it is metal on metal for the detent. So honestly, I think that it's a bit of a toss-up for the two of these. I think that I'm making a change based on my experience with the Bosch, and part of it is also just wanting to try the Makita, and I will be moving to the Makita. The Bosch has already been listed online for sale, so I hopefully will be getting a little bit of money on that in the next few days. So thanks for watching. I will have more videos soon. If you have any questions about the Makita, please feel free to ask, and I'll take a look and I'll respond to your question or potentially put a video together for you. I won't be able to answer too many questions on the Bosch because it will be gone, but thanks for watching and we'll have more videos soon. Thanks.